National Council for Climate Change, Sustainable Development and Public Leadership. Particularly, I would like to thank Dr. Kirish Chalaji for giving me the opportunity to share some of my views on the important challenge of 21st century for agriculture, that is primary resources, water, energy and food. You all know that the agriculture in the past century has been mainly driven by the green revolution. There have been significant yield increases globally up to 2.5, 3 times, with just marginal increase of 12% of additional land area. And in India also, during the independence time, 1950s, the total food grain production was 50 million tons, and it has increased 400 to 200 million tons by turn of century. It's an impressive accomplishment. Well, this has been mainly possible due to, you all know, the crop varieties which are responding to energy use, that is fertilizers, and water use, that is irrigation. Over a period of time, the benefits of the short-lived green revolution, the misuse, abuse, overuse of natural resources have led to the degradation of the fragile ecosystem of the country. You see the soil degradation in Punjab, Western UP, Andhra Pradesh, etc. Basically, this is due to greenhouse intensive crops. Now the agriculture is a drought source, you all know that. For the last decade or 2 decades, we started witnessing the climate change impacts negatively on agriculture. Well, this has been dealt for the last 2 days. We have a huge population. It has tripled in the last 50 years. Till now, we have increased our food grain production by 4 times. But henceforth, it is going to be a very tough task because, as I said, we haven't developed the varieties which would increase the yields exponentially. The resources, primary resources are becoming scarce, you all know that. And this would have effect on the fragmented land holdings of small and marginal farmers. So, business as usual cannot go for agriculture in the arena of climate change. In the medium term, due to climate change, the agricultural yields are expected to decrease by 4.5 to 9-10%, which would affect the GDP of the country, possibly 1.5% of decrease in GDP per annum. In the long run, if we don't take any action, the results are going to be very bad. The agricultural yields may reduce by 25 to 40% even. And you all know that, again, many people here, I don't want to take much time, water, energy and food are inextricably linked. Water is a major input for the food production. Energy is required to produce water, food, pumping groundwater, which we have been using widely in the country, agricultural mechanization, processing, all these things require energy. Well, food production, as many people told yesterday, you all know that 80 to 90% of water is used for the agriculture. Water for energy currently amounts to 8% of the total withdrawals. In Western countries, in Europe, it's up to even 40-50% also. Food production and supply chain is responsible for around 30% of the total global energy demand actually. Why do we focus on these only 3 resources? Because these primary resources, they represent a global risk for agriculture of our category, we all belong to that, and particularly due to climate change. The approach to this nexus depends on the perspective of the policymakers actually. If you take water perspective, then the rest of the 2 things are inputs. If you take food perspective, the other 2 are inputs. But basically, district elements are, all these resources are not accessible to many people below the population. They all have high demand, growing demand. They have resource constraints, and they all have different regional availability and variations in terms of supply and demand. And a lot of interdependencies, interconnections between these resources, and generally they operate heavily regulated markets in many countries. For today's discussion, I would like to focus on the water perspective, because water is essential, and to produce 1 calorie of food, it takes about 1 liter in general. And the stunning facts are that if you want to produce an apple, it consumes about 70 liters water. 1 kg vegetables, 200 liters water. The breakfast morning, 1 slice of bread takes about 40 liters And if you want to take a meat or a beef steak, it consumes about 2,000 liters. The situation is very grave actually. I can go on and on actually. Henceforth, so far the management of the water, energy, food resources have been examined by researchers and by policymakers in India and many countries in isolation from one another. They have not taken a kind of holistic approach. That's the problem. But the Nexus approach, which has started emerging for the last 5-6 years, or starting with the Bonn conference actually, it recognizes the interconnections and dependencies between the sectors. The objective is mainly to improve each sector's security and availability and efficiency. And the Nexus addresses externally across sectors, decision making at the Nexus, support transition to sustainability in the long run, it has to do that result. And the approach is multi-sectoral, multi-dimensional, multi-functional, etc. The Nexus approach is necessary because the projections for the challenges for the Nexus are, you all know that since yesterday people have been dealing that the food demand would increase by 70%, and population increase, and the intake by the per capita is going to be increased, global demand for the meat is going to increase, which consumes heavy amounts of water, etc. But the available land is limited. What we have to get, the 70% of the additional food production by 2050 has to come from the available land with very marginal increase of cultivable land. You all know this fact, I don't want to go much of this. These challenges are actually population and decreasing land availability, stagnating land, the declining food production, because now no more the fertilizers, no matter whatever fertilizer amount, the crops, many crops, particularly cereals, are not responding, and increasingly water, energy intensive food production has been there in the time of scarcity of all these resources. Of course, climate change adaptation should be made relevant as a policy by governments, and it should take into account of so many measures which would help to increase agriculture efficiency, water efficiency, etc. These are the facts that have been dealt just about a while ago by Shruti. I don't want to go there. Basically, from governance point of view, some flash points and integrated solutions I would like to give. From the agriculture sector of the Nexus, the realigning the food procurement policy is important. Better field water management techniques are important. Providing incentives to grow low water consuming crops. So far we have been giving MSP and incentives to wheat in the North India and rice in South actually. The crops like millet, which consumes very little water, they are not giving incentives. So that should be policy attempt. Coming to the water, groundwater actually, several states have formulated the rules and regulations like Water Act in as well as Andhra Pradesh, etc. But groundwater regulations have not been really imposed actually. In many states, to dig a bore well, you need permission, but nobody takes that. They have to be imposed. And the community participation, whatever, either wells or tanks or ponds, is very important really to address in the groundwater sector of the Nexus. And coming to energy actually, so many people have dealt just now, Shruti has said the solar pumps, renewable energies. The most important is the increasing efficiency of pumps, because hardly 45 to 50% efficiency is there. We can save a lot of energy. All these are the solutions: increasing the use of renewable energies, resource productivity, developing multi-users. The opportunities in the energy sector are shifting to fossil fuels to renewable energy, increase the use of cogeneration. All these opportunities do exist, but in the long run they have to be taken up. Basically, so many pathways have been addressed from agriculture point of view within the Nexus. Most important is employing sustainable production systems, drought-tolerant varieties, less water-consuming varieties and crops. Most important is changing the diets, because these are all very minimum cost initiatives in the Nexus actually. I would like to focus on the third point. The coming to changing the diets to really for meat and cattle. If you have increased 1 kg weight of a cattle, it requires 7 kg of cereal for production. So we are wasting, we are consuming energy, we are taking water, producing cereals and giving it to cattle. So 7 times the cereal food is required. And if you want to produce 1 kilo of pork, it takes about 4 kilograms of cereals, that is animal feed. And for chicken 2 times, etc. So we are wasting. Of course, there is an argument that I am non-vegetarian, but some people have been advocating to shift into vegetarian foods, which would put lesser pressure on the food resources. Most important is reducing the losses in wastage. You all know that almost 25 to 35% food is wasted from farm to fork. And if we can really address this challenge efficiently, we would be just as Shruti told, $925 billion or something like $80 billion US dollars, something like that. What is saved is produced. I'm sure if we really focus from policy and governance point of view on reducing losses and food wastage, we would save 25-30% of food, and we can meet the challenge of growing population of whatever, 9 billion or 9.3 billion or 9.5 billion by 2050. But we should have the political will, and governance and policy issues are very important. Coming to food wastage, as you know, per capita food losses are most in Asia and Latin America before pre-consumption. That means from production till processing are more in the developing countries. It's obvious actually, as you see. And the contribution of each waste, if you take carbon footprint, though the consumption gives only 20%, takes about 20% food losses, but carbon footprint is very high, 37%, because it requires energy to process and to transport and to cook food here also. If you take the greenhouse gas emissions are higher in agriculture and all the sector, but at consumption stage, the greenhouse gas emissions, as you know, these are higher here. And again, basically the three food, cereals, meat, vegetables, they are contributing very high kind of this thing. In all the regions, they have taken the regions, FAO statistics they have taken actually. All the regions, of course, these three things are consuming high for the carbon footprint. What I want to say that this again, since yesterday so many people have talked about irrigation. As you see, the groundwater is the highest amount of water being there. Yes, sir, I'll finish with 2 minutes. If compared to US and China also, the groundwater in India is many-fold higher actually. And if you see the number of bore wells, 1987, each dot represented to 5,000 wells. They are increasing so much by 94, by 2001 so many, by 2007 so many, and I don't have further but this. The Nexus approach has been adapted since ages in many parts of the country. What I would say, the ancient wisdom actually, the hydrologic cycle of India, that we had stored the water to the monsoon season, use later. So they have actually constructed tanks all over India if you take. There are over 4 lakh tanks irrigating about 4 million hectares of land actually. That has reduced. In South India alone we have about 120,000 tanks, 1,20,000 lakh, irrigating about 2.8 million hectares actually. What I will share a small example of the Mission Kakatiya, it's a part of Nexus approach with the minimum effort and community participation actually. Telangana region was in the kind of high rock region. You cannot really store water deep. So tanks have been constructed, but tank irrigation has reduced. If you see from there about 50 years ago, 5 lakh hectares, it has come down to 2 lakh hectares for a period of time. And the well irrigation, if you see, from 1 lakh it has increased to 12, tank it has come down from again 5 to this thing. So the state of Telangana has taken the renovation repairs of the tanks. We have 46,000 tanks in Telangana. Basically, they are these catchment areas, the cascaded tanks, what we call. Chaining system mainly exists in Telangana and Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. The surplus water from upstream tank goes downstream and we store it and then it goes down. And in the series, every tank gets filled up during monsoon season, which will be useful for the Rabi season actually. This is the Mission Kakatiya actually. I would like to conclude with one thing, that the Mission Kakatiya, it would reduce the pressure on water use for agriculture. It would recharge the bore wells. The community participation is there. So it is one of the major initiatives in the state of Telangana to address water issue from agriculture point of view. In turn, it saves energy also, because the water, Telangana has the highest number of electric pumps, over 2.5, 3 million, 30 lakhs tanks. Almost it represents about 67% of Indian tanks. Total India, probably there are about 20 million electric pumps, maybe 5-6 billion diesel pumps. Huge number, it will reduce the energy burden, you will recharge water, and it's a cost effective. So this is the Mission Kakatiya objective actually, and these are the process of Mission Kakatiya. And at local level participation is there, at the ground level, village level, and this is called our village and our tank system, which has played very important role since ancient times in many parts of India. Even Gujarat also has done this. With this I would like to conclude.
Thank you, Dr. Devi.